A motherboard, also known as the main board or system board, is a central printed circuit board in a computer that serves as the foundation for all the other components and peripherals to connect and communicate with each other. It's essentially the backbone of a computer system, providing the physical and electrical connections necessary for the various hardware components to function together. Here are some key components and their functions found on a typical motherboard. The central processing unit socket is where the computer processor is installed. The CPU is often considered the brain of the computer and is responsible for executing instructions and performing calculations. RAM slots, random access memory slots, are where you install memory modules. RAM stores the data that the CPU is actively using, allowing for faster data access and manipulation. The number of RAM slots varies from motherboard to motherboard. Expansion slots. These slots allow you to add additional components to your computer, such as graphic cards, sound cards, network cards, and more. The most common type of expansion slots include PCI Express slots and legacy PCI slots. Input/output ports are connectors on the motherboard's rear panel or sometimes on the front panel. They include USB ports, audio jacks, Ethernet ports, HDMI/display port connectors, and other connectors for connecting external devices. Chipset. The chipset is the set of integrated circuits on a motherboard that manages communication between the CPU, RAM, storage devices, and other peripherals. It includes the North Bridge and the South Bridge, or the PCH Platform Controller Hub, which handle different functions like memory control, PCLE connections, and I/O operations. The terms North Bridge and South Bridge refer to two separate components of older computer motherboard chipsets that used to be responsible for managing various functions and connections within a computer system. These terms are less commonly used in modern computers because their role has evolved and been integrated into a single chip or dispersed across the motherboard. However, understanding these concepts can still be helpful for historical context. North Bridge. The North Bridge, also known as the Memory Controller Hub (MCH), was traditionally responsible for the high-speed communication between the CPU, RAM, and graphics card if a dedicated GPU was present. It managed the CPU interaction with the main memory RAM and controlled the data flow between the CPU and the RAM. The North Bridge was responsible for handling the faster data transfer rates, such as those used for gaming and graphics processing. South Bridge. The South Bridge, also known as the I/O Controller Hub (ICH), was responsible for managing lower speed peripherals and connections such as USB ports, SATA ports for storage devices, audio inputs/outputs, PCI slots, and more. It handled communication with slower devices and provided support for various I/O functions, including data storage and connectivity. Functions of the South Bridge were generally less time-sensitive and lower bandwidth compared to those of the North Bridge. BIOS/UEFI. The Basic Input-Output System (BIOS) or the Unified Extensible Firmware Interface (UEFI) is a firmware that initializes and configures hardware components during the boot-up process. It also contains settings that can be modified to configure the system's behavior. Power connectors. Motherboards have various power connectors, including the primary ATX power connector, usually 24-pin, and the CPU power connector, usually 4-pin or 8-pin. These connectors provide power to the motherboard and the CPU. SATA connectors. Serial SATA connectors are used to connect storage devices such as hard drives and SSDs to the motherboard. They provide both power and data connections. USB headers. USB headers are connectors that allow additional USB ports to be added to the system. These are often found on the motherboard and are used to connect front panel USB ports on the computer case. CMOS battery. A small coin cell battery is used to power the CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor chip, which stores BIOS and UEFI settings and the system's real-time clock. Fan connectors. Motherboards have connectors for CPU fans and system fans. These connectors allow the motherboard to control the speed of the connected fans based on temperature and system load. Front panel connectors. These connectors link the motherboard to the power button, reset button, LED indicators, and other controls on the computer case's front panel. Audio header. This header allows you to connect front panel audio jacks on the computer case to the motherboard for the audio input and output. Networking components. Some motherboards have integrated Ethernet controllers and Wi-Fi adapters, while others may require separate expansion cards for networking. These components work together to form the central hub of the computer system, enabling the CPU to communicate with memory, storage, peripherals, and other essential hardware components. The specific features and layout of the motherboard can vary widely depending on the model and manufacturer, catering to different types of computers and user requirements.